Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast with opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. That's my co-host, Tyson Gentry, coming to you from Missoula, Montana. Today, we got a lot of topics that we're covering, Tyson. A ton to get to, mainly the NBA coaching fallout that has resulted from some NBA playoff exits that did not go down very well with the fan base, with the ownership, and things like that. So we got a fun little thing that we're going to play because both of our teams got embarrassed on the way out, and both of our teams decided that they want to go in a different direction from the coaches. And then we're going to do a little coaching carousel, looking at coaching candidates out there, and then end the show with the NBA draft lottery, giving our reactions to what happened, and also looking at and previewing our early thoughts on where some of these top prospects could be playing their NBA basketball next season. Tyson, man, it was rough. It was a rough way for us to see our teams lose the season this year. That is for sure.
Well, luckily for me, the Suns conditioned me to that a year ago when they lost even worse to Dallas. So I always say that the decade before getting Chris Paul prepared, like nothing will ever be that bad. But this sucks, dude.
And the Sixers have prepared me for this my entire life,
That's
talking
true.
about disappointing. So I was fully ready. I was more angry after Game 6. After Game 7, like I told you, man, it was over. They had no shot until they actually came out and tried in the first quarter and then completely quit in the season. But we will get into that. We will get into that. But I mean, let's start here before we move into our teams. There are 5 head coaching openings right now. The Suns and Sixers, as we discussed, the Toronto Raptors, who moved on from Nick Nurse, the Milwaukee Bucks who moved on from Mike Budenholzer, and then one who does not belong here, the Detroit Pistons. Talk about a one that does not fit the other openings. They're still looking for their next head coach. I guess, are you surprised that we have 5 openings right now? Are you surprised the teams that have the openings as well?
No to either of those questions, but I'm surprised, if this makes any sense, the names on that list that you just read off are a lot more accomplished or a lot held in a lot higher regard than normally when we sit here at the end of the season. And it was boom, boom, right? I mean, Phoenix fired Monty Williams on Saturday. Doc Rivers doesn't have a job as we sit here on Tuesday. Like those things. And Mike Budenholzer was just a couple days before that. So those were some high-profile teams. But the NBA is just getting to that point where, like, we can't wait around. Even small markets. Like Milwaukee has Giannis, so it's go time. Like we don't have time to wait.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. I mean, the Suns got absolutely eviscerated. They got destroyed again. Like this is the second year in a row and they were down 30 at halftime. Like it's just completely embarrassing. And to that point, you have a new ownership group. Matt Sheba is running this thing. I really don't blame him for coming in and wanting to change things around. Like if you buy a business, you want things to be in the idea that you want it to be, kind of you want to put your stamp on it. And I don't fault him for anything, especially when it was kind of ended that way. And so let's start here. So I'm going to be asking the questions here. Tyson's going to be reacting because the Suns are his favorite teams. First of all, were you excited to see Monty Williams get fired?
No, I wasn't excited. Like it's probably necessary, but I was sad as a Suns fan. I think for all that I didn't like about Monty Williams, whether it was rotations or stuff like that. I mean, you're talking about, I watched Igor Kokoskov coaching the NBA, brother. Like, Monty Williams was a welcome change and the most stable guy to walk through that door since Alvin Gentry, probably. So, a little sad to see him go.
Did you think it was the right time for them to move on from him, though? Like, did it feel like the players were still getting along from your perspective?
And no, the players definitely aren't getting along. I think that was obvious to see a year ago, and then they run it back. I wasn't surprised to see him go at all because this is like you're down 40 to Dallas at halftime in a Game 7 at home, and then next year you're down 30 to the Nuggets at halftime in a Game 6 at home. That can't happen. Like especially this year when you add Kevin Durant. But one of the things, and I don't know where your questions are going, so I don't want to step on them, but like. That's the only confusing part to me as a Suns fan is Ishbia comes in as a new owner. He, by all accounts, pushes the Kevin Durant trade through. Monty Williams talks about how like he's crying because you don't want to get rid of Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. And then you get ousted in the second round, and now it's like you couldn't figure out how to coach this guy or make this team win. Like the team that I just kind of put my reputation on to start my career, you couldn't make them win. That felt like an impossible task for Monty Williams no matter what. I think he had to have won a championship this year for him to probably realistically retain his job. And so that part, I don't know if that's all the way fair, but that's the NBA, that's professional sports.
When you look at the Suns team as it's currently constructed, like what are changes that you want to see them make?
DeAndre Ayton can't be a Phoenix Sun anymore. Everyone's talking about how, he's like, you can salvage him. I'm reading that a lot or hearing that. I don't think so. Like, what situation is he going to walk into? Brad, this is the same conversation, and he's not Ben Simmons, but it's the same kind of thing that I've been saying for a long time, where some of these guys are 25-10 in Houston, or they're 25-10 in Detroit. But when it's like you're the third option and you have to be the third option, but you don't get to have the ball in your hands the whole game and kind of do whatever, shrink. And then they get frustrated because they feel that they should be here when like the results show otherwise. Like he's acting, I'm whatever, man, that guy sucks. But he can't be on the Phoenix Suns anymore. I think Chris Paul, I think that's probably realistic that they move on from him. But one thing I want to caution all Suns fans, if you're listening to this, if you trade, like everyone's cooking up these crazy, you sound like Lakers fans. Like we're trading Ayton and Chris Paul, and we're getting back Giannis or whatever it is. Who wants $160 million contract for DeAndre Ayton right now? Like realistically in the NBA, who wants to take on this massive Chris Paul deal at the end of his career? Are you getting back plus pieces for that? Because everyone wanted to pretend they were better without Chris Paul this year in the playoff run because they won 2 games against Denver. It wasn't because of point guard play. It was Devin Booker just deciding, like, I'm not losing these 2. So you have to surround them with it's the same way you surround any of these teams: shooting, defense, rebounding.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think DeAndre Ayton can be on the Phoenix Suns next year. Like we talked about it when they gave him that extension. It just felt like it was a desperate move. They're like, oh, man, we're kind of nervous if we let him walk. So they gave him this contract, and then it was the same thing that happened with him again. And I did read something that if they cut Chris Paul and sign him back for the mid-level exception, that can save him potentially $10 million in cap space, which would go a long way. There's actually a new CBA coming as well, where there's going to be a major penalty for these people who are repeat offenders who go into luxury tax. So it should even out the playing field a bit, but that's something to keep an eye on. And the NBA's salary cap is the most complicated in all of sports. Like it's super hard to understand. So I highly recommend Bobby Marks as someone to take a look at, or any of these other analysts. If you're like super curious about how this works, like we don't really know all the ins and outs of it just because it's so complicated and you really need like a law degree to look over it. But I mean, Tyson, would that be something you welcome back? Like, do you think Chris Paul, there's value of having him coming back to the Suns in a limited capacity or a lower salary capacity?
I think so, because I think it all depends on how Devin Booker feels. Because whether or not they traded for Kevin Durant, like Kevin Durant can't go to the front office tomorrow and say, I don't want to play with Booker. That's not going to fly. The inverse of that, if Booker goes and like, hey, this didn't work, send this guy off. I think there's a realistic shot that they're like, okay, like we want to keep you happy. Seemingly they get along. Like him and DeAndre Ayton can't be teammates anymore. I think that's a big part of it. But of course, dude, the only issue with that would be you are in the playoffs. Chris Paul is not on the court in the fourth quarter, and he's barking at everybody else. And now it's a problem because he's on everybody's ass, but he's averaging 12 minutes a game.
Who's your dream coaching candidate?
I don't know. I mean,
that's how you know you were depressed after the loss. You're like, man, I need the time away from these guys.
Well, I've thought about it a bunch, and to be honest with you, like the last night, I was just sitting like before I was going to bed, and I was thinking how funny it would be if Mike D'Antoni was the next head coach of the Phoenix Suns. And like I kind of talked myself into it. I don't know. I don't want it to be Doc Rivers. I don't want it to be like Mark Jackson or Budenholzer. Nick Nurse would have been cool, but apparently that's not going to happen. They have some assistants who have been around for quite a while, and obviously Monty's pretty good at getting those guys up. But like Sam Cassell would be nice. Chris Quinn is probably the sleeper one, the assistant coach from Miami. He's been there all the way since 2014. And if you're going to lose Chris Paul, and with the way Monty Williams ran things, maybe more drill sergeant type atmosphere as far as practice and things like that and how you conduct yourself, maybe that would be a welcome change. He's going to hire Izzo, or he's going to throw $100 million at him because he's a Michigan State guy.
I've heard that they are trying to do everything they can, or I've read that they're trying to do everything they can to get Ty Lue.
Yeah.
Steve Kerr would be cool. I don't know if that's realistic.
Steve Kerr would be really cool if that's genuine, that Bob Myers moves on, wants to sell the team or whatever, doesn't want to be doing this, paying into the luxury tax as we move forward, because Kerr just came out and said the team maxed out. His contract's up, Ty Lue's contract's up, but it's the NBA, man. It's hardly ever exactly who you expect.
Anything else you want to get off your chest, Phoenix Suns related, that you want to share with the world before we move on to my turn on the hot seat?
I don't know. Nights like tonight in the NBA draft lottery, it just makes you think like it's not as bad as when we drafted Dragan Bender or Marquise Chris at the same time.
Yeah, at least you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on your team.
It's not as bad, man.
All right, let's transition to Philadelphia doom and gloom. And I got this headline: "A process is over," and that's really what it feels like. Like, I'm listening to Philly radio after the lot. Like, it's sad in Philadelphia. Just everybody's done with the Sixers. Everybody's depressed. Everybody is just ready to be moved on from, ready to move on with the Sixers. And I was talking with somebody, Tyson, just thinking back on all the draft picks that Hinkie and you know that he gave them from the tanking, and then that they selected.
We really
after
are kindred
the fact.
spirits as franchises.
Oh my God, I can't believe they botched that entire thing. But it's classic Sixers as they move on from Doc Rivers officially after 3 years in the head coaching seat in Philadelphia.
3 years and 2 blown playoff leads. So congratulations. Doc's out. Okay, we know that. Was this a Doc Rivers problem, or is this a Philadelphia 76ers stink that won't get off this franchise no matter who is in charge?
Man, I think last year I would have said this is a Doc Rivers problem because that's really what it felt like. And watching the playoffs this year, I can't blame it on Doc all the way. I mean, there's still times like if you're scoring that few points in the fourth quarter of Game 6 at home, if you're scoring that few points in the third quarter on the road, like at some point, you're not doing a good enough job of getting your players open shots or open looks or running good enough offense to allow that. But at the same time, Tyson, I think we saw we gave this guy so many excuses, Joel Embiid. And he wants to be known as the best player, and he wanted that MVP so bad because he wanted to put his name on it. And like he thinks that would crown him. And he gets to the playoffs every single year and shits down his leg. And we gave him excuses. Oh, Ben Simmons, or we got unlucky with that bounce from Kawhi, and anything that can go this way. Oh, it's Doc, it's this. James Harden, came in late. And then you got everything set up for you this year. And you once again came up small in the biggest moment. It's hard for me to look at Doc and be like, no, this is your fault. Does he have some blame? Sure. But at the end of the day, it is on the players as well.
Can Joel Embiid be the best player on the championship team?
That's I think the question that's really the toughest to answer right now. Me personally, I do believe so. I think he can. It's going to take a little bit more for me to say no. But I don't think that James Harden is the guy to be the running mate with Joel. The dude just dribbles the ball to death. I think it's so much better when James is off the floor. You're able to go up tempo, and Joel Embiid feels like he can like kind of move around and float around and still get the rock and feel like he can pass out or whatnot. So I think if you surround them with a good two, whether it's a Lillard, whether it's a Brad Beal for 20 games because he's always injured, or somebody along that caliber, I think that would provide more opportunities for Joel to succeed in the playoffs.
4 years ago, you would have sounded crazy to say that Joel Embiid was going to turn 30 before he played in the conference finals.
Yeah, that's the reality. That's 76ers basketball, baby.
Who's next? Because they're star chasing in Philly, and that's kind of it's not necessarily true, but like that was the goal with the process, was to get stars. You get Embiid and you get Ben Simmons, you think you have stars. And then you move on, you get James Harden and a certified huge swing. You had Jimmy Butler, another guy. Whoever, Al Horford, like that, you can run through. There's a lot of guys that they were chasing. Damian Lillard is a hot name right now to play in Philly. Do you actually believe that's true before you get into the rest?
No, I don't think the Dame thing has legs. to be completely honest with you. Mainly because James Harden has a player option for $35.6 million. I think he realizes after what he just pulled, if he opts out, he's not getting anywhere close to that. And it's unfortunate, these player options, when the player, it plays the way they do, they can still like, oh, I'm just going to opt in for this amount of money. Now, he can opt in and the Sixers do a sign and trade to wherever he wants to go and he gets an extension, let's say. But he's boys with Daryl Morey. If I had to put money on it, I think James Harden is putting the 76ers jersey back on for next year. And that also brings you to the point with Tobias Harris, $39 million for base salary next year. $39 million
over me.
Is anybody going to trade realistically for Tobias Harris? That's the question, because you're going to have to move off of that salary if you want to get one of these stars, like you said, that they're star chasing. So I think right now when I'm looking at it, Tyson, realistically, I think it's the same team that's coming back with a new head coach.
You don't think there's going to be any – you have to improve around the edges at least, especially with the secondary bigs have to be like guys who can play 40 minutes if they have to. And they don't make – those guys aren't just available. But I think it's getting to the point, Brad, with Joel Embiid where it's you have to decide this guy's either going to play 60 games and then maybe be healthy for the play. I mean, we make fun of Anthony Davis all the time. But JoJo, again, that was a funny point you had where it does feel like it was a Kawhi bounce and it was Hinkie and it was Doc and whatever. That's just kind of another instance. It feels like this guy gets – I never thought of it that way. Maybe we were just being sheep, man.
We're babying him, dude. It's time for us to take the kid gloves off. We did it with LeBron. We were ready to pounce on him when he couldn't do it. All these greats, you remember, people are pounding Jokic. Well, he's never done this in the playoffs. Why can we give him an MVP? That's Joel Embiid's never even been to a conference finals. But let's make sure that he gets his MVP. It's just come on, guys. Seriously, at this point in time, it's ridiculous. And I love the guy. I want him to be a 76er, but at some point, you can't baby somebody and expect it to be different. We did this with Ben Simmons already. Come on.
Well, if you can't baby him, Brad, who's got to be his next NBA head coach?
Well, if I'm going to sound like a nut here, but my dream 76ers head coach would be Jay Wright. I think that would be incredible. But if I'm coming back into the real world, Nick Nurse has got to be the guy. He's an asshole. He gets in you. He grinds you. Doc, he's a player's coach. And that's good in some respects, but at the end of the day, this Sixers team needs somebody to kick them in the ass. There's just too much lackadaisical nonsense going on when they're on the floor, and Nick Nurse is not going to allow that. I think if you want to change the culture, if you want to turn this team who's been underperforming basically since Allen Iverson was there, it's got to change, man. And somebody's going to have to come in and do it. And I think Nick Nurse would be the guy. I think they'd be crazy if they get him in that building and let him walk out.
Last question is, a lot of stuff has changed with the Philadelphia 76ers over the last couple of years, but there's been one thing that's been true no matter who was on the team, Brad. Why doesn't this organization have any heart?
Oh, God. I don't know, dude. It's the craziest thing. Everybody
doesn't matter who's
has
in
success. No, it doesn't. Everybody who has success in Philly, there's always dogs. And we have PJ Tucker, and he tried to do his best, but ultimately, you need your best players to take on that mantle. Jalen Hurts for the Eagles. He's a dog. Bryce Harper for the Phillies. He's a dog. Now, the Flyers stink, so, there's really nobody we can look to and be like, whoa, yeah. But the Sixers, you're expecting that to happen, and it just hasn't happened. The last time, honestly, was Iverson. You just, get on my back, we're going to the finals. And then after 2001, then it kind of went downhill organizationally. We haven't had that since. Drew Holiday, Iguodala, as great a players they are, they're not like dogs, man. They don't fit into what Philly needs, whereas Jimmy Butler was that guy, and they let him out the building.
That's so. God, man, hindsight's 2020. But yeah, I'm sad. I don't want to keep talking about how our team sucks.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, Tyson, but that's the reality of NBA basketball. It is what it is.
Let's go back to making fun of Ja or something.
Yeah, you're right. Well, let's have a little light thing. Let's talk about some of the coaching candidates that are out there. A little carousel. I know you have a list that you were looking at, and you're curious where you think, if you think some of these coaches are going to get a job next season, because like we said, there are 5 openings.
So this is an article from Vincent Frank, but it just has a list of the candidates. Brad, I'm going to throw some names at you, and I just want gut reactions. Let's start with the former NBA head coaches. Does Nick Nurse get a job?
Yes.
Does Mike Budenholzer get a job?
I think yes.
Does Kenny Atkinson get a job?
I want to say yes, but I don't think so.
Okay, so we'll call that a no. Does Doc get another job?
No.
No for Doc Rivers. Does
No for
Mike
Doc.
D'Antoni's not getting a job?
No.
Mark Jackson get a job?
I don't think so.
Do you feel like that's just the media like getting clicks at a certain point that he
It's
just
Bill
gets?
Cowher all over again.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Does Frank Vogel get a job?
Yes.
Monty Williams get a job?
Yes.
Does Terry Stotts somehow get a job?
No. God, I hope not.
Do you think Sam Cassell gets a job? I'm going to get into some other ones here.
I don't. Like, I could see the Sixers promoting him, but I don't think he gets a job outside that organization.
Let's see. I'm looking through the list of names. Jerry Stackhouse is on here. Kevin Always on here. Mark Few's on here. Brad, does Kevin Young, the assistant from the Phoenix Suns, kind of the G League guy there, does he get a job?
He's a hot name. I think in the next couple of years he will. I don't think this cycle will be his turn.
Do you think Jerome Allen from the Pistons gets a job? He's a former coach at Penn, coach in Italy as well, and then he's been here for the last couple of years.
Yeah, another hot name that people are talking about, kind of like a interesting revolutionary, wants to move the game forward in a way. I don't think so, just because these four teams are ready for somebody to take them to the next level. And I don't think a young coach like that, without head coaching experience, can do that for these franchises.
Does Chris Quinn get a job, the guy that I mentioned?
Man, he's been rising up the ranks in Miami. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's coming. But again, I don't think anybody wants to take a shot on him with these franchises.
Well, then who the hell are the Detroit Pistons going to hire as their next head coach?
Well, I said no on Atkinson. I could see him there. I think it's Budenholzer if they were smart, but they're going to have to lick their wounds after the Wembanyama thing didn't go their way. But who's the guy who I was looking at that I think is getting a lot of buzz too is the assistant for the Bucks, Charles Lee. Now, I've been hearing a ton about him. Now, the Bucks may promote him within, so that's something I'm interested in as well. But I don't know. Like, the Pistons seem to be the biggest wild card. Like, I think I have an idea. It's all former head coaches that the four playoff teams who fired their coaches are looking to replace theirs with. What I mean, gut feeling for you, Tyson. I'll flip it back on you if you want to run through them quickly. But like, who do you expect to be getting a job out of that list?
Well, I think Nick Nurse gets a job. Let's see. I'll run through. I don't think Doc Rivers gets a job. I don't think Mark Jackson gets a job. I think Frank Vogel is going to get a job. I think Monty Williams is going to get a job. I think one of Sam Cassell, Charles Lee, Adrian Griffin from the Raptors, Chris Quinn, one of those assistants will get a job.
Okay, interesting.
And then I really just, man, I don't know what Phoenix is going to do. Phoenix can hire Andre Iguodala, and like I wouldn't be shocked. Or they could hire Udonis Haslem, and I wouldn't be like, whoa,
Yeah.
So I know four guys are going to get a job. I think we're in agreement there. It's just finding that fifth one, and to me, it's just who goes first, because it's like NFL NFL quarterbacks with contracts. Like, you got to be first, or else you're screwed.
Yeah, 100%. And another one too, Scotty Brooks, old Thunder head coach, currently a Blazers assistant. Apparently, there's some murmurs that he may get another shot.
Which college coach would you not be shocked if they got hired this cycle? Like if Musselman got another shot, or Calipari was like, I want to do this again.
Calipari's got an insane recruiting class coming in, so not this cycle. This one's like Davis levels, apparently. That's whatever he says, and he'll undercoach. College coach right now, you know what?
Is Jerry Stackhouse going to look?
I don't know. He has the pedigree. If I'm looking at like purely college, like Nate Oates, I know he's building something in Alabama, but it feels like the NBA could be something that he may want to dip his feet into at some point. Whether it's this one or not, that's something that I want to keep an eye on. But yeah, Musselman, obviously his pedigree, his dad coached the NBA. He wants to take a leap at some point too.
Do you think Juwan Howard just like looks at that empty Hunter Dickinson locker and then it's just like, I don't want to be in Michigan anymore, dude?
Man, oh man. Potentially, although there's some rumors and murmurs that the relationship between Dickinson and Howard weren't the greatest at the end. It came down to a lot of NIL stuff. That's one of the reasons why he left. But I'm interested to see how Howard coaches, without all these great players that he's brought in over the years.
It's going to not be great, Brad. We know.
All right, let's get into the NBA draft lottery stuff, Tyson, because this has been one of the most anticipated draft lotteries, I think, in a while, and mainly because the can't miss prospect everybody's talking about is Victor Wembanyama from France. So whoever was going to win this draft lottery was going to have a shot and was going to select Victor Wembanyama, who's supposed to be a franchise changer. Now, if you're not familiar with the draft lottery, it used to be that the team with the lowest number of wins had the highest percentage chance of picking number one. But to discourage tanking, the NBA took the bottom three teams with the lowest win percentage and gave them all an equal chance to win. So 14% for the bottom three teams, and they tiered it down from there. So this year, that was the Pistons, the Spurs, and the Rockets, who all had a 14% chance to draft Victor Wembanyama. And Tyson, this went the way of the San Antonio Spurs. And I know a ton of people out in social media, and if you're in your group chats, you're an NBA fan, you're like, whoa, of course the Spurs, they got Wembanyama. And when you look at it, I mean, they drafted David Robinson, number one, pretty good player. They got Tim Duncan, number one, pretty good player. And now they're getting Victor Wembanyama, who seems to be a pretty good player.
He's supposed to be the best player, dude.
Supposed to be the best player. Let's start with the Spurs. We'll just kind of work our way down from there, give some early thoughts, and we'll just discuss some different prospects. But I mean, what'd you think when the Spurs got Victor Wembanyama? Because I know you were like, this is going to happen.
My first thought was, of course, of course, the generational big. Greg Popovich gets to put his hands on him at the very end of his career. This is perfect. And to be honest, everyone wants to talk about. I saw a lot of poor guys got to go live in San Antonio. The only other place better for him would have been New Orleans, just for whatever food he could put on that frame. Like, San Antonio is going to do this kid. They're going to do him well.
Spurs get the number one pick. The Hornets get the number 2 overall pick. The Trailblazers get the number 3 overall pick. The Rockets and the Pistons, both who had the best odds, along with the Spurs, to win this thing, go 4 and 5, respectively. Rockets 4, Pistons 5. The Magic, due to the Nikola Vucevic trade after getting their guy last year, number 1 overall, they're picking number 6 with an opportunity to add to that. The Pacers are picking 7th. The Wizards 8th, Jazz 9th, Mavericks 10th. Now, if it didn't fall in that range, this is a Kristaps Porzingis trade, it would have gone to the Knicks, but they keep their pick after missing the playoffs. The Magic, another lottery pick at 11. The Thunder picking at 12. Raptors 13, and then the Pelicans on the last pick of the lottery at 14. So I think this is interesting if we look at it from a team building standpoint, like where we're looking at it, because the 2 best prospects, I think, in this draft class are Wembanyama and then Scoot Henderson from the G League. But, Tyson, as we look at it here, the Hornets don't really need Scoot Henderson. Like, if we look at it. So
he lost a lot of money tonight, Scoot Henderson. Yeah. He's 6'2" in a draft of you have the Thompsons, both the overtime elite guys, 6'7" wings. You have Brendan Miller, 6'9", can put the ball on the floor. Jarris Walker, 6'9". We just watched him for a month. Cam Whitmore from Villanova. Like, it's a lot of 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guys. And then you have hey, I need the ball all the time. And the guys drafting at the top are LaMelo Ball, Damian Lillard's team. Not a lot of fits.
No. I'm just going to project it right now. I think Brandon Miller is going to go number 2 overall to the Hornets. Like, I would be really surprised if that's not the pick for them there. It's an established player, 6'9", gives you that length. Eventually you're going to need somebody who's a more consistent and a better Gordon Hayward at this point in their career. And I do think Brandon Miller can become that type of player for the Hornets and pair well with LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, he's got, like we talked about it throughout the NCAA tournament, but he's got a lot of like Brandon Ingram in his game, so that could be really fun. There's a lot of guys here in this draft class that the average basketball fan probably has watched 0 seconds of. Are going to go in the top 5, 6, 7. Like Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama, unless you were kind of a sicko or super tapped in, you didn't start hearing their names until this year. The Thompsons, all the overtime elite guys. So this is going to be kind of a fun one as the general public is going to get to know these players a little bit better as the draft process comes. Because normally, like, we have one superstar European that nobody's truly sure about, and then we watch the rest of them over here, and the NBA has transitioned into This, and if you ever ask yourself why you don't see giant guards in college basketball, it's because they're all in the G League.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's a good point. And I think here's a name. I'll just throw this out there because I'm not quite sure. I mean, at the Blazers, I really don't know what they're gonna do this offseason. So I don't know like where they're gonna kind of attack this draft. They got some wings in the past couple. Do they want to do that again? Like, maybe they take Scoot? Maybe they're looking for a dynamic guard. Like, I'm not quite sure, but I don't really know what they're going to do, Tyson. And then as I'm looking through it, the Rockets, it feels like they need a wing, although they've drafted Jabari Smith last year. Like, is that a place for a Thompson type of, one of these Thompson kids to go to? It's a young team. Pair them with Ime Udoka. Do they want to go a different route? Like,
Bradley. You cut out on me there for a sec. I missed you.
Yeah. I was just saying there's so many like players in this draft that I really think it's going to come down to where you project these kids to become and what you think they can actually play at the next level.
The other part, Brad, is there is outside of Victor Wembanyama, you have to go a ways till you get to like Derek Lively or whoever you have as the second best, like true big in the draft class. And Wembanyama's not a true big, but he's 7'4". So if you are watching Instagram and you think this dude's playing shooting guard, it's not going to happen. Like he's an NBA power forward at worst, center obviously once he bulks up. But it's a lot of guards and forwards. And if you watch the NBA, look at the teams left. Nuggets are huge. Lakers are huge. The Heat are almost exclusively the same size of basketball player. And then obviously Boston is massive. Not quite as big as they were a year ago, but the league's transitioning into 6'7" creators. Like that's what we want, and then we want 6'9" wings.
Couple names to keep an eye on just for everybody out there as you're kind of going through this prospects and looking at Taylor Hendricks from UCF. Dude's a big 6'9", 3-and-D, can shoot the lights out of the ball. You're not going to have really heard about him because he played at Central Florida. Kid is a flat out player, man. I think he's going to be a really good player at the next level. Keontae George from Baylor, a little bit more known. They're at his peak in college basketball last season. They were saying he's a top 5 selection. I think he's going to fall out of that. I'm interested to see where he goes, but I think his ceiling is uber high, only 19 and a half years old. I think he has an extremely high ceiling on him. Other names to keep an eye on, Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's a 6'6" point guard. He can knock down threes. He has an NBA body already. Whether he goes in the lottery or not, whoever picks him, I think can build a good guard with him. Marcus Sasser, a smaller guard from Houston, like he's a little bit more known. I think he's actually going to fit the game well coming off the bench, could potentially be a Lou Williams type of player. And then the last one I'll just throw out here as we look through it, Bryce Sensabaugh from Ohio State. He's a 6'6" wing, but can also handle, also has a big-time NBA body already at 235. He could be one of those guys like Benedict Mathurin from Arizona who can just come in and play immediately. If you're looking for somebody kind of later in that lottery, maybe you're the Pelicans, just looking for guys right now you compare with, that could be an option for you.
I think Grady Dick is going to blow some people's minds at the NBA Combine. This is a dude from Kansas, didn't get to play very much, obviously. Like, super athletic. I already mentioned Cam Whitmore. This is weird, but this is like the first time in a while that, like, Jordan Hawkins, best player or best team in the country, gets a player in the lottery, but everybody else, man, it's just like Anthony Black or whoever Carson. What's the dude's name from Kentucky? But just underperforming college teams.
Cason Wallace.
Yes, that are just loaded with crazy talent. But the best teams in the country aren't very well represented up here.
No, this is going to be a very interesting draft season. Like I haven't paid attention really to the combine in a little bit. Like I have my idea. I've like a rough big board that I'm starting to put together because we do this every year as we go through it. It's actually helped us a ton in the betting markets because we absolutely crushed it last year. This year, I'm not going to lie to you. There's going to be opportunities to bet and make money because they are all like type players, similar builds. You think a team needs this? It could be 6 different guys. A lot of information you're going to need. You're going to have to pay attention, I think, to what these teams are actually saying about these guys. I don't know if there's even going to be smoke that's really needed to be given because we know who's going 1. I think we have an idea who's going to go 2 now that the Hornets have it, and the rest could be anything. So really pay attention to it. That's what I'm thinking going forward here, Tyson. I'm excited to get into this analysis and this process we get ready for the NBA draft.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm already cooking up trades in my head for how certain teams can get to certain spots to land certain players. Man, we get out of one draft season just to get into another.
Absolutely. June 22nd, that's when the NBA draft will be. So it's coming up here. We've got about a month of silly season. It's going to come at you fast. So we got you covered. Don't you worry. That's why you got to get into our chalkboard. And Tyson will tell you where you can do that at.
Yes, it is on the Chalkboard app. It's on the App Store and Google Play. The name in there right now is, what do we switch it to?
Roundtable Bets.
Roundtable Bets. All right. And it is Brad, myself, and a group of people in there that we're just trying to grow and build and throw bets on NFL, NBA, anything you can think of. And we're talking shit to each other in there. And that's kind of the most fun part. We had actually our most horrible showing was the NFL draft, and that was the most engagement that we got. So maybe we should just start missing as many as we can in a row to see what we can get done. But anything you can think of, we got plays, so hop in there, fade us, tail us, or just, shoot the shit.
Absolutely. It's always fun in there. We try to make you guys a little bit of money, and hopefully you guys join and try to help us make some money as well. But in the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, send us a comment, like it. That definitely helps our engagement on YouTube and helps us become more discoverable on there. Or if you're listening to some podcast form, whether it's Apple, Spotify, whatever the case may be, make sure to give us a 5-star review or at least rate the show because it helps us become more discoverable in the charts, and then more people can find us organically. And if you want to stay connected with us, go ahead and follow us on our social media pages. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok all have the same handle, ISWIS_pod, as we have more content and stuff going out there at all times. In the meantime, though, we are getting ready. We're doing the work because we have an NFL podcast coming out soon where we're taking an early look with the schedule release, where there's some soft things, where there's some not, where maybe this team can be attacked in the middle of the season, and an early look at win totals and odds as we get, I can't believe we're saying this, already starting to get ready for the NFL season upcoming. So that should be a lot of fun. Pay attention to that as we get ready to do that and release that episode as well. So we will talk to you all at a later date. Until then, guys, peace.